Thomas Edison was born on the 11th of February, 1847 in Milan, Ohio, which was a middle-class port town second only to Edessa, Russia, and wheat exporting. In 1854, at the age of 11, he moved to Port Huron, Michigan, a much larger port city where Edison would be raised. As a child, he would always ask people questions about how things worked, and if they answered, "I don't know," then he would simply ask, "Why?" He was taken out of school after the teacher had had enough of his constant bombardment of questioning and his self-centered behavior. Today we probably would have classified Thomas as attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD. His mother was now left to teach him at home. He would be taught to read books and learn the Bible. His father would give him 10 cents every time he read a classical novel. He especially liked to read and recite poetry. His favorite poem was Gray's Elegy in a Country Churchyard, which included his favorite line, "The boast of heraldry of pomp and power, all the beauty, all the wealth e'er gave, alike await the inevitable hour, the path to glory leads but to the grave." At age 11, Edison's parents taught him how to use the resources at the public library that led him to preferring to teach himself. At first, Tom's plan was to read every book in the library starting from the bottom book on the bottom shelf, but his parents soon told him to choose more selectively. By the age of 12, Thomas had read many great books such as Gibbon's Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire, Sears's History of the World Dictionary of Science, and other books on chemistry. Despite all of this, Edison still wanted even more information, and when he started asking questions about Newton's laws of physics and other things to do with physics, his parents were in over their heads. To try and help him understand these things better, his parents scraped together enough money to hire him a tutor who would be able to answer his questions. At age 12, Tom had already become a businessman. He not only started his own business selling things such as newspapers, snacks, and candy on the train from Port Huron to Detroit, but he had made another business dedicated to selling fruits and vegetables. As he worked on the trains, he would read the teletype news of the day and put them in his own newspaper. He got over 300 people to subscribe to his paper called the Grand Trunk Herald. This paper would be given international recognition as a British engineer came to inspect the railway and reported it in the London Times as being the first paper to be sold on a train. At its height, this paper would earn him up to $10 a day, which was more than enough to fund his chemical laboratory that he would set up in his parents' basement. He later moved it to an empty train car as his mother complained of the smells and odors coming from the basement. This would, however, prove costly, as on a bumpy section of the track a stick of phosphorus fell out and set fire to the baggage compartment. The train operator was so mad he severely slapped him across the head. It is stated that it helped cause Edison's hearing loss. He would become totally deaf in one ear and 80% in the other, but the only thing he said he missed hearing were the birds in summertime. He often said that he didn't get surgery to regain hearing because he didn't need all of the distractions of the modern world whilst he worked on experiments. One day, whilst working at the railway station, the master's son walked in front of an oncoming boxcar, and Tom saved his life by pushing him out of the way. For a reward, the master taught him how to use Morse code and the telegraph. By the age of 15, Tom had mastered the basics and got himself a job as a replacement telegrapher for the others that had been sent to fight in the Civil War. This experience would help Tom perform experiments that would help him to improve the device. Once the war was over, however, he decided that it was time to leave and earn his money. He did this by traveling through many of the central United States as a tramp operator. Because of the experiments he performed, Edison invented his first authentic invention, the automatic repeater, at the young age of 16. The automatic repeater would transmit signals between unmanned stations and would allow anybody to translate code at their own pace. One day when Tom returned home penniless, he discovered that his parents were also in the same boat as him and were to soon go bankrupt. The only way in his mind to get away from this all was to go make some real big money. This decision was majorly affected when a guy asked Edison to travel east to Boston, Massachusetts, where he would be able to get a job as a telegrapher at the Western Union Company. Another reason Edison went to Boston was because at the time Boston was considered the hub of all technology, culture, and science. Whilst in Boston, he would work 12 hours a day and still manage to work on inventions. Within 6 months, he had applied for his first patent and received it for his electronic vote recording machine. When he took this invention to the Massachusetts legislature, he was denied the right to have it used as a voting counter in the elections, as it went against the political status quo. Edison concluded that his invention was too ahead of its time and marked it as a failure. Whilst Edison was in Boston, another great inventor of that time was there too. Alexander Graham Bell had also moved to Boston for the same reasons Edison had. At the age of 7, Edison listened to a Boston Tech lecture about multiplex and telegraph lines. This idea would bring about the first telephone created by Mr. Bell himself. During this time, Edison met a man named Benjamin Bredding. Bredding would teach him about the harmonograph and the multiplex transmitter. Because Tom had been doing so much experimenting and not enough actual work, he was about to be fired from Western Union, so he quit and moved to New York City. When in New York, he was a starving poor man and lived in the basement of an office block. One day, when he was walking through a business section of the city, a manager came out shouting how his electronic stock ticker was broken and asked if anybody could fix it. Many people tried, but no one could fix it. Then Tom came up and replaced one spring back into place, and it started working again. For repayment, the manager gave Tom a job at his company for $300 a month. In 1876, he opened his laboratory in Menlo Park, New Jersey, which would be where he would test and complete most of his inventions. As we all know, his most famous invention is the incandescent light bulb. Many people believe that Edison invented the bulb itself, but it is well known to historians that in fact he only really carried on other people's ideas and works. The making of the light bulb would not be as straightforward as it seemed. First, he would have to find a filament that would not break, and then it would have to create a good enough vacuum for it to glow in incandescence. This would be difficult under laboratory circumstances, but if it were to be sent into the commercial world, then there would be even more difficulties to overcome. The first challenge was to find the best material to use for the filament and the best way to place it in. In the fall of 1878, Edison set to work, and after trying things such as wood, carbonized paper, various tissues, and other fibers covered in carbon, moved to platinum. Edison would apply for a patent of an electric light bulb and receive it. However, it was only a small prototype bulb that would last for about 2 to 3 hours at the most. Edison would continue with his trial and error testing of other filaments and still came up with bad results. The breakthrough would occur after a 5-day session that started on October the 16th. He started using cotton thread that was fitted on a hairpin-shaped groove in a nickel plate, which was then cooked and carbonized for a couple of hours. When the filament had been completed, he put it into the bulb, drained it of air, and sealed it. Finally, he would turn on the current of 110 watts, and on the night of October 21st, he would see what he had been working for all of this time. The first bulb burned for many hours, and the second lasted for up to 40 hours. Edison was noted for saying, "I think we've got it." Recognizing that his death marked the end of an era in the progress of civilization, many people, communities, and corporations throughout the world dimmed their lights and briefly turned off the electric power in his honor on the evening of the day he was laid to rest at his house in Glenmont, New Jersey. They recognized that he was an inventor and that he never gave up giving the people of the world the greatest gift of all, the gift of light. Because of the blank spots that Edison had in areas such as intelligence, speech, grammar, etc., a number of medical authorities say that he may have had a learning disability that went well beyond deafness. They say that this disability, along with his lack of education, may account for why he always seemed to think so differently compared to the others of his time. Whatever it was that gave him his unique personality and traits, his incredible ability to come up with a meaningful new patent every 2 weeks throughout his working career added more to the wealth of the world and had more impact upon shaping modern civilization than accomplishments of any other figure. Most science and technology historians say that he was indeed the most influential figure of our millennium. Indeed, in my mind, he is the most influential, and he shows the power of one.